Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah, Sada Shiva Samarambham, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmadacharya Paryantam, Vande Guru Paramparam. In our last session, we began the discussion on Jnana Yoga. After completing our discussion on Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga, then now Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi is telling us about Jnana Yoga. In our last session, we saw Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi giving the teachings on inquire into what is this mind, whether such a thing like mind exists. That is what we need to inquire into. So that is an important thing that we need to do. We have to inquire into whether such a thing like mind exists. And when we inquire into that, then we realize that there is no such thing as the mind. Manasam tu kim margane krute, na eva manasam marge arjavad. This is the direct path. So this is the path of inquiry. And then when we inquire about the mind, it is all regarding thoughts only. Vrittayah tu aham. Vrittim ashritaha. Vrittayo mano vidyaham. Vidhi aham mana. So there are so many thoughts are there. And then all the thoughts can be brought down to two thoughts, idam vritti and aham vritti. The thoughts of all the objects, that is idam vritti, and aham vritti, that is I thought. So it is brought down to two thoughts, idam vritti and aham vritti. And then from idam vritti we withdraw to aham vritti. This aham vritti is the what we call the mind. If there is no aham vritti, there is no mind. But this I thought is the mind. That is what Bhagavan Maharishi described here. Then said aham ayam kutah bhavati chinvatah ai patati aham nija vicharan. Then when we start inquiring from where this I thought arises, then this I thought also falls off. So this is the path of inquiry. This is the Jnana Yoga path of inquiry. Then ahaminasha bhaji aham taya spurati rut swayam parama purnasam. Then with the destruction of ego, only the self remains, which is of the nature of parama purna sat. See, infinite.
Yes, Swami.
So, Parama Purna Sat, that is the supreme Purna, complete, infinite, Sat, pure existence. So, with the destruction of that ego, the finite ego, what remains is the pure self. And then in the 21st verse, we saw Idam Aham Pada Abhikyam Anu Aham Aham Linake Api Alaya Sattaya. When that finite ego also get absorbed into its own source, what remains is that Alaya Sattaya. Alaya, that is not subject to any destruction. So all these, I thought and this thought and everything merges. I thought merges. There are Jiva, Vyashti, Ishvara, Samashti, and then the pure self, where the Vyashti and Samashti merges. Then there is no I. There is only the pure self, pure awareness. This, of course, Jiva Ishvara is the Upadhi Bheda. Otherwise, it is the pure self. Only the Rupa is different. Otherwise, the Swarupa is the same. Then in the 22nd shloka, Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi takes up the path of Viveka. For those who find the other thing difficult, then Viveka. Whether we are this body, the sense organs, the pranas, the mind and its contents, called the emotions, feelings, and sentiments, or the intellect and its contents, called the thoughts. Vigraha, Indriya, Prana, Dhi, Tama. So gross body, subtle body, and all that. Na aham ekasat. I am none of these. I am that pure existence. And these are all the gross physical body, the sense organs, the pranas, the subtle body comprised of mind and intellect. They are all tajjadam. They are inert, insentient, ki asat, and non-existent. And of course, we have done this so many times. Why we cannot be this gross physical body? And most of those reasons that we have come up with, they apply to the sense organs also, pranas also, mind, and well as intellect also. Those reasons can be applicable. So by no stretch of imagination, we can be any of these. What remains is what we are then. So we did up to here in our last session. Today we'll begin a new verse, verse 23. Satvabhasika chitvavetara sattaya hichi chittaya yaham. Satvabhasika chitva va itara va itara sattaya hi chittaya hi aham. So Satvabhasika. Now the question arises when somebody says that, okay, earlier there was nothing and then God created this world. Then the question that is asked is, who created God then? Then if the answer is given, X created God, then who created that X? So it will go infinitely, it will go like that. So now, is there a consciousness that can illumine the pure self? Or a consciousness? So a consciousness, if it is illumining another consciousness, yad drishyam tajjadam, it can't be known. So this is not possible. So is there any other consciousness that can illumine the Sat Swarupa, the pure self? So there is no such other, because Sat itself is Chit and Chit itself is Sat. So this we have to understand very clearly. This Sat and Chit, they are not two different entities. They can't be taken two. They are only one. Like the famous example that is often quoted is like, fire has got light as well as heat. So it can't be taken as differently. You can't separate heat from fire. No, I just want the light in the fire, no heat. No, that is not possible. Or I just want the heat, I don't want the light. No. If the fire is there, heat and light will be there. If a fire is raging, fire is there, then there will be heat and light both. You can't separate them, light and heat separate from fire. No. Keep one of them. No, it is not possible. Or separate both. That is also not possible. So therefore, like that only this Sat and Chit, it can't be separated. They are the two aspects of the same entity. The simple thing is that Sat without Chit will be inert and insentient. Existence without consciousness will be inert and insentient, non-living. And Chit, consciousness without Sat, existence will become non-existent. So that is not possible. So therefore, Sat itself is Chit, Chit itself is Sat. So that has to be taken that way. So there should be no confusion here. Sat and Chit. And that which is Sat and Chit itself is Ananda. In the 24th shloka, more clarification is coming on this. ईश जीवयोर्वेशधीभिता सत्स्वभावतो वस्तु केवलम ईश्वर जीवयोः वेशधीभिधा सत्स्वभावतः वस्तु केवलम. Now Isha and Jiva, Vyashti and Samashti, Ishvara and Jiva, Samashti and Vyashti, Jiva Yoho, Vesha Dhibhida. The difference is of the two conditionings, the gross and subtle conditionings. Vesha is the gross, Dhi is the subtle conditioning, Bhida. So the difference is only in the conditionings, in the Ishvara and Jiva, Samashti and Vyashti, totality and individuality. Sat Swabhavatah Vastu Kevala. It is the Sat Swabhava that alone is. There are no two different things. Now, the gross and the subtle body, subtle gross and subtle conditioning. From that standpoint, there is a difference between Ishvara and Jiva. Ishvara at the level of totality, Jiva at the level of individuality, Vyashti and Samashti. But Sat Swarupa, from the standpoint of Sat Swarupa, from the absolute standpoint, there is only one non-dual reality. That's all. Abheda. So now here, what is the difference between Jiva and Ishvara? Ishvara is Sarva Shaktiman, Sarva Vyapi, Sarvajna. And Jiva is Alpa Shaktiman, Alpa Vyapi, Alpajna. That is the difference. Sarva Shaktiman. Sarva Shaktiman means he is the Lord of all the gross conditionings, gross body. That is Sarva Shaktiman. And Sarvajna is, he is the Lord of all the subtle bodies, subtle conditionings. He is the Lord. But both gross and subtle conditionings, they are rooted in ignorance. We have already studied the three bodies, the causal body, the subtle body, and the gross body. So the cause of gross and subtle body is the causal body, and causal body is nothing but ignorance. From the causal body has manifested subtle and gross body. So these conditionings, they are, whether at the totality level or at the individuality level, they are basically coming from ajnana, ignorance. So ajnana mulaka. And therefore, because they are manifesting from that causal body called ignorance, therefore it is mithya. Mithya, we have already seen. Mithya is neither sat nor asat, because we do experience. So it cannot be called as asat also. It is not sat also, because sat is something which is in all three periods of time, in all three states of consciousness, not subject to any modification, and beyond time, limitations of time, space, and causation, and so on. So this can't be sat. It can't be asat also, because we are experiencing it. So that which is neither sat nor asat, they call it as mithya, as we have seen earlier. So The difference between the Bheda, the difference between Jiva and Ishvara is again Mithya only. It is the conditionings only. The Vyashti and Samashti, individuality and totality conditionings. When the conditionings are negated, the reality is the same. The Swarupa is the same. This is called as Mithya, means which has got only Vyavharik Satya, but no Paramarthik Satya. But what is reality? When these are removed, what remains is the Paramarthik, Abheda Paramarthik Satya. Therefore, Ishvara Darshana itself is Atma Darshana, or Atma Bodha itself is Ishvara Darshana. There is no difference between the two. So therefore, in this path, we don't talk too much about God. First, know who you are in reality. When you know who you are, that itself is Ishvara Darshana. Then you will know God. You don't have to go looking for God. Know yourself first. This is very important. So, there is no Bheda. Of course, Ishvara is not affected by Maya. It is the wielder of Maya Shakti. It is not affected by Maya. Like the snake is having the poison, but snake is not affected by that poison. But Jiva is definitely affected by this Maya and ignorance. And therefore, this Jiva suffers all the time. Now, there may be a difference between the individual body, mind, intellect equipment, that is Jiva, and the total Samashti Upadi called Ishvara. But the consciousness that is pervading through everything is the same. So, because if there are two consciousness, then one consciousness will be the knower of the other, and that which is known will no more be the Chit. It cannot be the Chit, consciousness. So, Jiva can't become Ishvara with respect to the Upadi, the conditionings of the finite body, mind, intellect, because he is Alpadnya, Alpashaktiman, Alpavyapi, whereas Ishvara is Sarvajnya, Sarvashaktiman, Sarvavyapi, so on. So this is the difference. As respect to the Upadis are concerned, of course, there is a difference between Jiva and Ishvara. But he can realize the truth. The Jiva can realize the truth, Brahman, the pure self, the absolute truth. And in that, he is no different. Then there is, without the Upadi, he is the same. So, Ishvara is the self of all, being the Lord of all the Upadis. Because Ishvara is the Nimitta and Upadan Karan, the self of all. We have seen this cause and effect. We have discussed this many times. If there is an effect, there has to be a cause. There cannot be an effect without a cause. Generally, in producing anything, there are three causes, they say. The first is the Upadan Karan, then there is the Nimitta Karan, and a third cause we can consider as a Yantrik Karan, or material cause, intelligent cause, and the instrumental cause. And the famous example that is often quoted is about the pot. So, mud is the cause of the pot, that is the material cause of the pot. And the potter's wheel is the instrumental cause. And the potter himself is the nimitta karana, that is the intelligent cause behind the production of pot. Whereas here, the three causes are not separate in the creation of this world. So there are three causes rolled into one. And the famous example that is often quoted in the scripture is of the spider. Spider forms the web. The material for the web comes from its own body. And the spider itself is the instrumental cause. It runs around forming the web. And the spider itself is also the nimitta karan, the intelligent cause also behind that. So three causes rolled into one. This is the example that is often quoted in the scriptures. So that is one. And in fact, in Vedanta, cause itself appears as the effect without changing its nature. Like the water appearing as wave without changing its nature. Water itself appears as ocean. Water itself appears as snow or ice and snow on or steam. So it is only water. So the cause itself appears as the effect in some other way. So therefore, there is no difference at all. And moreover, that which is the subtlest is the most pervasive and is the substratum of everything when compared to the gross. We have seen this many times. Gross earth, subtle water, subtler than water, the gas, so solid, liquid, and gas. And the space is subtler than solid, liquid, and gas. And the space supports so many stars and planets and so on, supports, which is the subtler than the solid land, liquid water, and the gaseous atmosphere. This is subtler than that. And then subtler than the space is pure consciousness. The knower of existence of these. That has to be subtler than the space. And therefore, is the substratum of everything, illuminator of everything. So, every effect has got a cause. There cannot be any effect without a cause. The causeless cause is the substratum of all the projected effects on that, on which all the effects are projected. And this causeless cause itself is the illuminator of all the effects that are projected on it, the substratum. So, other than that, then there is nothing. This is very important. We need to understand that. That itself pervades in and through everything. So, like, this is the essential factor without which nothing can exist. And we have taken example so many times, the sweetness in the sugar and so on. So if the sweetness is the essence of sugar, if that is removed, then sugar doesn't exist anymore. Because without that sweetness, sugar is just a tasteless white powder, then it becomes. Nobody will call it as a sugar. So, Isha Jiva Yoho, it is only the difference of the conditionings. Sat Swabhavato Vastu Kevalam. Sat Swarupa, it is one at the same. Now, having said that, we move on to the next verse, verse 25. Veshahanata Swatmadarshanam Nishadarshanam Swatmarupatah Veshahanatah Swatmadarshanam Ishadarshanam Swatmarupatah. Now, Veshahanatah means the destruction of the Upadis. Veshahanatah, or one who gives up the conditioning. Now, when we hear this giving up the conditioning, should we commit suicide? Should we destroy our own body, mind, intellect, equipment, giving up these gross and subtle conditionings? Veshahanatah. No. What is to be given up is the I notion in these conditions. I am the body, the sense organs, pranas, mind and intellect. This is the I notion in the gross and subtle conditioning. That is what has to be given up. Veshahanatah swatmadarshan. When the identity with this I notion, with this gross and subtle upadhis, conditionings are given up, then there is a self-realization. Swatmadarshan. Isha darshanam. the vision of the Lord, that is the self alone. So here, when it is said that we have to give up the conditioning called the body, mind, intellect equipment, it doesn't mean that we have to destroy it. Only the I notion in this equipment that has to be given up. The Saksha Swarupa of Ishwar is also the same, Satchitananda Swarupa only. Therefore, Atma Darshanam, which is also Satchitananda Swarupa, Atma Darshanam itself is Ishwar Darshanam. So, we don't have to bother about Ishvara now. Only we have to figure out who we are. We have to understand our own Swarupa. Knowing our own Swarupa itself is Ishvara Darshanam. So, sometimes we often come across where, because of the power of our own Shraddha, Bhakti and Prema, we may get Lord's Darshan. But that is not Paramatma Darshan. That is not Paramatma Rupa. It is only Rupa, not Swarupa. It is only the Rupa of Paramatma, not the Swarupa. Swarupa has got no form. So, since it is seen, anything seen, Yad Drishyam Tad Jadam. We have seen that. And Yad Jadam Tad Alpam. Yad Alpam Tad Nashtam. So that which is seen is inert, that which is inert is finite, and that which is finite is subject to destruction. When we revise the 14 reasons why we cannot be this body, in that we have come across this also. Yad Drishyam Tad Jadam. So, it cannot be the Swarupa of the Lord. Rupa. It is not. Paramatma is of Chaitanya Swarupa. Ananta and Avikari. So, one thing we have to understand very clearly, by mere darshan of the Lord, ignorance of the self will not go. It will not disappear. And we have got many, many examples. From Satyuga, from Treta Yuga, we see so many people had the darshan of Prabhu Ramchandraji. Did they realize the self? Nothing happened. In Dwapar Yuga, Arjuna was Krishna's Sakha. Did it help him? No. After the Mahabharata war, he ended up in Narka only, after fighting that Dharma Yuddha. So just having Ishvara Darshana, Rupa Darshana, that doesn't help. We have the famous example from Bengal, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He had the direct darshan of Devi Ma. He used to converse with her. But he didn't have Atma Jnana. And then Totapuri Maharaj had to impart that knowledge to him. And when Totapuri Maharaj appeared to impart that knowledge, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, I'll have to ask Devi Ma. Totapuri Maharaj said, go and ask her. So when he asked, so Devi Ma said that I have only sent him to acquire knowledge from him. And whenever Totapuri Maharaj used to ask him to meditate on the knowledge that was imparted to him, we say that, but always that Devi Ma comes when I close my eyes in my view. So Totapuri Maharaj told him, pick up the sword of Viveka and Jnana and chop off the head and go beyond the Rupa and become a realizer of Swarupa of your Devi Ma. The Swarupa behind her Rupa. Realize that. And same thing happened in Maharashtra also. Namdev Maharaj, everybody has heard it. He got darshan of Lord Vithala at a very young age. Maybe he was 7 or 8 or 9 years, whatever. And therefore, he had a pride in that also, that at a young age he got the Lord's darshan. But having Lord's darshan is one thing, realizing the self is another thing. So the story goes that one potter was called, because he is of the same period as Jnaneshwar Bandhu, Nivruttinath, Jnaneshwar Maharaj, Sopan Dev and Muktabai. They're from the same period. So then they called a potter to test everybody, all these five of them, four these brothers and Namdev, who is matured and who is immature. So the potter tested and said that the other four are matured, this Namdev is immature. So of course he was very disappointed, Namdev Maharaj. And then he went to the Lord and asked him, the potter said, this is it. I'm immature. So the Lord said, yes, you are. You need to have knowledge. And then he told him to go to the forest where his guru is waiting. So, and then of course the story goes, he goes to the forest in a Shiva temple. One old man was lying on the floor with his feet on Shivlingam. So Nahudev Maharaj, when he saw this, what is going on here? This old man putting his feet on Shivlingam. He told that old man, this is adharma. This you can't do. It's wrong. It is papa. It is sinful. That, look here, I am so old. I don't have any energy. So if you feel it is wrong, just lift it and keep it aside. So when he lifted from that Shivlingam and kept on the other side, just below is that old man's feet, again a Shivlingam came up. So then Namdev Maharaj realized that this is not an ordinary old man. He asked him, who are you? Then he says that I am Visoba Khechari, your guru. I have been waiting for you to impart the knowledge. And then he imparts the knowledge. Having got the knowledge, when he returns home, evening time it is and the door is closed, somebody knocks from outside. So Namdev Maharaj asks from inside, who is it? So the voice comes from outside. It is Vithala, Vithoba. I don't want to meet any such Vithoba who is only outside and not inside at the same time. So then it is understood that he has realized the swarupa of his own Lord Vithala. Until then he was only seeing the rupa, not the swarupa behind the form. So these examples are many. So therefore, Isha Darshanam, knowing oneself itself is Isha Darshanam. This is the final realization. Having the vision of the Lord is not the final realization. This is the problem. Some years ago, I was in Dubai conducting Gita Jnana Yajna. I was doing this Bhakti Yoga in the Krishna temple in Dubai. So one person used to always poke in with some questions and he says that Krishna is supreme, Krishna is this, Krishna is that. One day the person was driving me after the satsang. He told me that the person who is asking me the question is ISKCON fellow. So I said, oh, the ISKCON fellow. Krishna is everything and all that. So then next time when he again made some statement, interjected something, then I told him, you say that Krishna is everything. Where is Krishna now? Well, he is in Golok. So that means he is not available to you now here. If you have to have his darshan, you will have to go to Golok. But Krishna's Swarupa is available to me here and now, at all times, everywhere. But if you have to have Rupa darshan, you will have to go to Golok. And then I told him that you are telling Krishna, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 4, in verse 22, I think, there is a shloka. Krishna is saying this, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavihi, Brahmagno Brahmanahutam, Brahmaivatena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. There he doesn't say that Krishnarpanam Krishna Havihi, Krishnagna Krishna Nahutam, Krishna Vatena Gantavyam, Krishna Karma Samadhina. There he doesn't say that. So, many people have misunderstandings about it. Rupa and Swarupa. We have to have very clarity about it. What is Rupa and what is Swarupa? Seeing the Rupa is not knowing the Swarupa. And knowing the Swarupa is the most important thing. Seeing the Rupa is not. Because many people saw the Rupa of Lord Rama and Lord Krishna. What happened to them? Because without knowing the Swarupa, there is no moksha. There is no liberation. There is no getting out of this birth and death cycle. Having said that, then we proceed to the 26th shloka. Atma samsthiti swatmadarshanam atmanirvayat atmanishtata. Atma samsthiti swatmadarshanam atmanirvayat atmanishtata. Atma samsthiti is the abidance in the self. Swatma darshanam, it is the vision of the self. Self. Atma nirdvayat, that which is non-dual. The self is non-dual. Atma nishtata, that itself is abidance in the self. So, Atma being the non-dual, pure self, abidance in that itself is Atma darshana. And that itself is Atma nishtata also, being the self. Drashta Atma and Anatma is Drishya. So Drashta is one, Anatma is Anek, Drishya is Anek, many. Therefore, there cannot be a Darshana of Drashta in Drishya Rupa. That means the seer can't be seen, the knower can't be known. If it is known, then it is not the knower. If it is seen, then it is not the seer. So in Vedanta, what is the meaning of this Darshana? Darshana is only objectless, thought-free, non-dual, pure awareness. That is the darshan. Darshanam is not actually seeing with the eyes, a vision. Vedanta. Darshan Shastra, it is called as to give us realization of the self. This vision, the word darshana should be understood very clearly. Otherwise, darshana means seeing with our eyes. No, it's not that. So, with Atma Bodha itself, then we firmly abide in our own self. And that is Atmanishtata. As long as there is a dreamer in the dream world, he cannot experience the waking plane of consciousness unless he gives up the dream world, gives up being a dreamer and becomes a waker. So, Atma is not a known thing, it is the knower, and therefore, Buddhi can never know, intellect can never know the self, because the self itself is made sentient or it is enlivened by consciousness. That which enlivens the Buddhi, Buddhi cannot know it. And Buddhi itself is a product of ignorance. So therefore, there should be no confusion here. Knowing the self is actually being the self. Self is not an object of knowledge. When we withdraw from all the objects, withdraw from all the thoughts of the object, what remains is only the self, that which illumines the object and the thoughts of the object. So, it is not an object of knowledge, but it is the pure subjective awareness. Therefore, self can't be seen with the eyes, with the limited instrument called the eyes. And of course, the intellect cannot know because intellect itself is enlivened by consciousness, as the torch can illumine all the objects in the dark room, but it cannot illumine the very battery cells on which the torch is functioning. So, another example is that we can't sit in a bucket and then try to lift ourselves along with the bucket. It is not possible. So, Atma Bhava, Atma-jnana, unlike all the other knowledge, is not thought-based. It is vritti-rahita, without any thoughts. All the other knowledge, they are all vritti-based, based on thoughts. Knowledge of anything, any objects also, any ideas also, concepts also, philosophy also, everything, even this text also, they are all thought-based. So, this and this we can acquire through buddhi. Knowledge of all the objects, knowledge of the scriptures also we can acquire through buddhi. And buddhi, of course, is the product of avidya. So, we have to also understand that thoughts are not produced in the brain. This is a little subtle. We have to understand this very clearly. Thoughts are not produced in the brain. Like a radio doesn't produce any program. Radio is just a receiving instrument. Radio programs are produced in some studio at a distance. And then we switch on the radio and tune into those sound waves, and then we hear that program. So radio is only a receiving station. Nothing is produced inside that radio. Similarly, this brain also is a receiving station of thoughts. There are 11 million bits of information that manifest in our intellect every moment, but we are aware of only 40, fortunate. Otherwise, we may go mad. So that is received by the brain, and then we are aware of 40 only. And according to the neurologist, Dr. Benjamin Libet, there is a gap between manifestation of a thought in our brain and we becoming aware of that. What does that mean? That means we don't produce it. It manifests in our brain when our brain is tuned in, like a radio is tuned into All India Radio or BBC London or Voice of America or whatever. So, when our brain is tuned into that, we tap into that knowledge. That is how many discoveries and inventions have happened. Therefore, Upanishads, those who got the revelation of Upanishad, great Rishi Munis, they got it, but they have never claimed authorship to that. Therefore, Vedas are called as apaurushaya. Apaurushaya means there is no author to that. And to those who, for whom the revelation came, they didn't claim the authorship to that. In certain scriptures, they have given the name of the Rishi to whom the revelation came, but that Rishi has not claimed authorship to that. In the deep state of meditation, the revelation came. When the mind is tuned, like the radio is tuned, the mind-intellect equipment is tuned into that, and we tap into that knowledge. This is exactly what even Albert Einstein also made such a statement. He said that I have never come across any worthwhile discovery by the rational process of thinking. It just manifested like that. So, this is a receiving station, and this is Jada, and then we become aware of it, and then we claim it as mine. So, good and bad thoughts will keep manifesting like that. It is somewhere something, when our brain is tuned into that like a radio, we tap into that knowledge. And sometimes good will come, sometimes bad will come, and we get disappointed with ourselves. Why I am entertaining such bad thoughts or good thoughts? Does it belong to me? This brain is, I am not the brain also, and what is happening inside the brain also, I am not that. I am the knower of what is happening there. I am other than that. But then we identify with that, and something negative or bad is manifesting in that. Oh, why I'm getting such bad thoughts? Why I'm getting such bad emotions and feelings like that? And we get disappointed with our own self. So one has to be very clear about it. There should be no two ways about it. Buddhi itself is the product of ignorance. Subtle body has come out of causal body, and causal body is nothing but ignorance. Without that ignorance, there wouldn't have been any subtle and gross body. Because of the causal body, the subtle and gross body has manifested. If there was no causal body, if there was no ignorance of the self, there is no question of any form, any subtle or gross body at all. Then, having said that, now we move on to the next shloka. Jnanavarjita jnanam hi nachit jnanamasti kim jnatumantaram jnanavarjita ajnana hi nachit jnanam asti kim jnatum antaram. So, jnanavarjita. Now here, jnana and ajnana, which Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi is referring to, is the thought of knowledge. Jnana varjita. Ajnana hinachit. Ajnana also thought of ignorance. Thought of knowledge and thought of ignorance. So, devoid of thought of knowledge, devoid of thought of ignorance. Then, jnanam asti kim jnatum antaram. So, then, is there anything left other than the self? If both are given up, the thought of knowledge as well as thought of ignorance, if they are given up, they are not there, divide of them, what is left is only the pure self. Jnana varjita, jnana hina, ajnana hina chit. Jnanam asti kim, jnatum antaram. So, this buddhi, intellect being jada, inert, insentient, can't know. It knows through, of course, sentiency attained by the closeness with the consciousness. So, we know that we have knowledge of some things, and we also know that we don't have knowledge of certain other things. So we are aware of knowledge of something, and we are also aware of our own ignorance about something else. So the knower of both the knowledge as well as ignorance, the pure self. So now, knower is of course different from the known, whether it is the thought of knowledge or thought of ignorance, whether we know or we do not know. Therefore, consciousness is other than knowledge and ignorance. The thoughts of knowledge and ignorance, of objects, of emotions, feelings, desires, and so on. Being the illuminator, consciousness is not affected by all that is illumined by the consciousness. Being the illuminator, consciousness doesn't get affected by that. What it illumines. Sun doesn't get affected by what it illumines in the universe, on planet Earth also, whether good or bad or whatever is happening. It doesn't get affected by what it illumines. Similarly, pure consciousness doesn't get affected by what it illumines, the external world. Whether it is in the external world or within the mind intellect equipment, whether it is thoughts in the intellect or emotions in the mind that it is illumining, it doesn't get affected by that. If we are getting affected, that is only because we identify ourselves with the mind intellect equipment. And that is how we get affected by that. So, with the study of the scriptures, of course, we can't know the self, but we'll acquire the knowledge. We'll acquire the paroksha jnana. And that will remove our ignorance of this subject. But we need to convert the paroksha jnana into aparoksha bodha. So when jnana and ajnana is discarded, what remains is the pure self. In the absence of the thought, what remains is only the self. A thought of knowledge or thought of ignorance, what remains is only the self or the chit, which is the illuminator of everything. It illumines both the presence as well as absence. The thought of knowledge, thought of ignorance as well. Like there is a light which illumines the stage. So when the play is going on, it is illuminating the stage and it is illuminating the play that is going on the stage. When the play is over, the curtains are drawn, the actors vacate the stage, the light goes on illumining the empty stage. So just illumines presence or absence, everything. So it is like that. So this jnana varjita ajnana hinati, both the thoughts of knowledge as well as ignorance, they are only thoughts alone, the external world. And pure knowledge, knowledge of the self is not thought. It is objectless and thought free. Then further in the 28th shloka, Kim Swarupamityatmadarshane avyaya bhava purnachit sukham. King Swarupam iti atmadarshane avyaya abhava apurnachit sukham. So now, Kim Swarupam, what is my Swarupa, what is my nature? When we inquire thus into this, so then we have the Atma Darshana or us knowledge of the self. That what is it? I am avyaya, abhava, avyaya, abhava, and then apurna chit sukham, avyaya, undecaying, abhava, unborn, uncreated, apurna. Purna is complete, apurna is incomplete. This apurna is infinite. Chit sukham, pure consciousness, bliss. This is our swarupa. So now, our goal is sukha. But where do we seek this sukha? Wherever we seek it, we get only dukkha. Am I sukh swarup or dukh swarupa? We want, of course, nitya sukham, nitya ananda, paramananda, nitya. But then we are seeking this nitya sukha in anitya objects of this world. So nitya sukha cannot come from anitya objects. And actually those objects are sukha rahit. There is actually no sukha in those objects. It is only on imagination. And whatever sukha we feel that we are getting from those objects, that is only projection of our mind. It is the inner bliss that is reflected on the object, appears as if we are getting that from that object. It is like the famous example of the dog chewing on the bone, and the sharp edges of the bone may injure his inner mouth, and it may start bleeding also. He's stuck at it and he'll think that the juice is coming from the bone. But it is his own blood that he is sucking. So this, from this sukha-rahita vishaya, how can we attain this nitya sukha? So without its swarupa, object will cease to exist. Swarupa is the most important thing. Without that swarupa, that entity will cease to exist. Without heat and light, there is no such thing as fire. Remove heat and light from fire, you can't call it fire then. So, without the swarupa, there is no, swarupa is not a boj or a burden. That also we need to understand. The essential nature of the swarupa is not a burden, and it doesn't give sorrow or pain or misery, our essential nature. For example, we have seen this. Poison is not a problem for the snake. Poison doesn't harm the snake. So, similarly, our own head is not a burden for our shoulder. It should be very clear. So our own head is not a burden for our shoulders. Similarly, our Swarupa is not a burden for us. And it cannot be Dugdai also, as the poison doesn't cause any harm to the snake. And it's part of it. So, if this is understood very clearly, it will not give us any dukkha. And if our Swarupa was dukkha Swarupa, then we'll welcome it whenever it comes and will not put any efforts to get rid of it. Isn't it? But that is not the case. Free from it. So, and it will not be a burden to us also. This pain and grief. But our experience is exactly opposite to that. We cannot tolerate even the smallest amount of any sorrow, misery, or pain in our life. And we quickly try to get rid of it. That means it cannot be our Swarupa. So our Swarupa has to be opposite of that. And that is of happiness, Sukha, Sukha Swarupa. So we are of Sukha Swarupa, not Dukkha Swarupa. But because of ignorance, because of aviveka, now we consider ourselves to be dukhi, miserable, sorrowful, in pain. And then what we do is that, okay, we must get some kind of, some pleasure, some joy, some happiness out of this world. So we go seeking out some kind of momentary pleasure or joy in the world outside. And then what happens is, it is like sugar going and trying to consume various kinds of sweet to sweeten itself. Sugar going out to consume sweets, different types of sweets to sweeten itself. It is like that. We are of the nature of infinite bliss, and then we go out in the world seeking momentary fleeting pleasure, joy, or happiness. This is exactly what we are doing. So, self is Ananda Swarupa and therefore always Nitya. Nitya, eternal, beginningless and eternal, Nitya. So, Avyaya. Avyaya, undecaying, Nitya. So, or we can say Avyaya, Avinashi also, not subject in destruction, Avinashi. And Abhava. Abhava is not born or created, it is uncreated, unborn. And Apurna. Apurna means beyond the limitations of space, time, objects, and causation. There is no limitation of these. That means it is infinite. Chit Sukham. Chit Sukham is consciousness and bliss. So, Apurnata. So, actually, the Apurnata and Apurnata. Apurnata is incompleteness. Incompleteness is the cause of misery, sorrow, and pain. Because we feel that we are incomplete, we want to complete ourselves, and therefore we feel we are incomplete, and therefore happy. So then we go by trial and error method. Maybe I should do this, I should do that, I should experience this, something like that. We go on like that. But how long we can go like this? And our experience is what? Even if it seemed to derive some kind of momentary pleasure, that is again momentary, fleeting, temporary, impermanent. So this is the problem. So there is no abhava of that pure self. So therefore, this is Atma Swarupa, Atma Darshana. That is, I am Satchidananda Swarupa. So with this knowledge only we can attain that infinite bliss, the awareness of that infinite bliss, objectless, thought-free, non-dual, infinite bliss. That alone is there. So, Sukha is actually not gained. It is Nitya Prapta. It is already there. It is here and now. We only have to be aware of that. Pure awareness. It is only because of our ignorance and we are not having an experience or awareness of that because of ignorance. It is not something to be attained posthumously after the body is dropped. No, it is here and now. That is the beauty of Vedanta. Vedanta doesn't promise anything posthumously. Here and now it can be attained. So, we have seen the description of Chaturdasha Bhavanam, Swarga Loka and other Loka and all that thing. Moksha is not going to these lokas, going to Swarga Loka or this Loka or that Loka. The destruction of ignorance itself is the destruction of all bondages. Then only the awareness comes, the pure awareness happens. And we have always been liberated. We are Nitya Mukta, Nitya Buddha. We have always been that. Only because of ignorance, we have no knowledge of it. And therefore, we are suffering in the dark. With the knowledge, when this ego is dissolved, what remains is the pure self. Ego that identifies with the conditioning that we have got nothing to do with. Unfortunately, we suffer. The funny thing is that nobody told us, since birth until now, nobody told us that we are the body. But we have assumed it, that we are the body. And now the scriptures tell us, great saints, sages and masters tell us, avatar Purushas tell us. But it is very difficult for us to accept it. But that which nobody told us, we have accepted very easily. It came to us very naturally. Anyway, now a couple of shlokas are remaining. We'll conclude it in our next session. Or should I conclude it now itself? Anybody has got any questions? They may ask.
Any question? Any question? Swamiji,
Yes.
amazing book, amazing. The person who is talking to you just now has traveled in last 55 years from different group, different forms of swamis, sannyasis, avatars, and with all of them, I had a close proximity. Even this book, I have this one book, my Swami Dayanand Saraswati, who later on settled down in Coimbatore. And date is written is 82 when I attended his lecture. But what today I find that all Swamis, sannyasis, places of worship, avatars, if I had known my true self, I would have met them, all of them, at a one place. As Maharshi says, in your heart. In just 28 shlokas, of total there are 30 shlokas,
30 shlokas, yes.
but what scriptures, there are so many scriptures like Gita, then Brahma Sutra, and what. The Maharshi, who is, I don't think he has read all this Brahma Sutra and Upanishad and all. But the gist, the juice, real juice of all that is stating in here.
Saara, the essence.
Yes, he states there. And what is required from one who wants moksha or liberation? only one shlok, 25th. Veshahanata swapna darshanam, Isha darshanam swapna rupata. Only one shlok.
Veshahanata.
Hanata, yeah, Veshahanata. Swamiji, only one shlok is enough. I don't know, there are tears in my eyes, Swamiji. That one Gopal Kishore Swami said that, I will tell you when time will come. I wanted him to meet you, Swamiji. And he said, and today, Swamiji, you introduced Ramana Maharshi through this Upadesha Saara. So beautifully, Swamiji. We do not require anything, Swamiji. We do not require. Your lectures will go on, you will take another books. But daily, if I can shade my superimposition, which has come through my ignorance of my true self, my true nature. And there are various methods by which we can do. Here also, Maharshi has given number of ways how one can. Swamiji, my pranams to Ramana Maharshi and my pranams to you also, Swamiji. Hari Om, Swamiji.
Hari Om. Shall we conclude now?
Swamiji,
Yes.
give me 1 minute. When the pure consciousness through conditioning has become Ishwar on a macro level and at micro level, Jiva. Is it necessary to introduce the concept of Ishwar, Swamiji? Or is it like you mentioned about it, this is the 18th house?
The conditioning, see the superimposition, whatever is there. It is the identification with the superimposition is causing the problem. If there is no identification with the superimposition, then the game is over. And this Maya is called as divine hypnosis. And then we have to get out of this divine hypnosis, this Maya Shakti. Few manage to get out of that with Nishtha. So this is an important aspect. It is only the superimposition, and that is also mithya. It is only an appearance. But then that mithya appears so real to us that we get carried away by that, not for one life, for many lives together. As we get carried away by the dream world as a dreamer, though it is all 100% mithya. But as a dreamer, it is not a mithya for us, it is as real to us. The superimposition in Dhyana Yoga also, Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi gave us a very, very good teaching there. Drushya varitam chitta atmana. Chittam atmana. He had said that. Drushya varitam. Withdrawal of the mind from the objects and then withdrawal from the thoughts of the objects. And then focus, shift the focus to the illuminator of the object or the knower of the object. Then when we do that, who is shifting the focus from what and on whom? Okay, we are focused on the objects. We know I am focusing on the object. I am focusing on the thoughts of the object. But when it comes to the knower or the illuminator of the thoughts and the objects, then where am I then? Who am I? And where is the focus then? Then only I alone remain. Without the objection, without the thoughts, what remains? It's I alone. So, without the objects and without the thoughts, my existence is not affected. My existence continues. Now there are no objects and there are no thoughts. What remains is I alone, the pure self. So to travel this route, it takes time. It is not easy. It is not easy because we have got entangled into this not for a few hundred years lives, but for millions of lives.
mm,
And then now we are taking a U-turn towards our real self. So some time it will take, because after taking the U-turn also we have to be on the right path. We have taken a wrong turn somewhere with the ignorance that it manifested or it came over us whenever it was.
mm,
That time we had taken a wrong turn. Now we have stopped our vehicle, took a U-turn. Now we have to get back to the right turn and then we're on the right track. So
mm,
then when we are on the right track, we are going back from where we wandered off unnecessarily to here and there.
mm,
Then it is all a time pass and nothing else.
mm. Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you.
So shall we conclude now?
Yes, Swamiji.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.